Hey, I'm Andy and this is Now Guitar. I love looping, but looping is very unforgiving. And when it comes to performing live, that equals stress. I'm super excited to be sharing with you today the Aeros Loop Studio. If you like the looks of what I share with you here in the video, I have a discount coupon available down below and also a very special bonus that I'm putting together for anyone who purchases through my link. I'm going to share with you my personal looping journey. I've checked out some other videos that people have done, reviews and whatnot, and I decided to take a slightly different angle on this. Rather than trying to be the big authority, I soon realized I find loop logic a little bit confusing sometimes, so I feel like a newbie a lot of the time. So that's the angle that I'm coming from. So what is my journey with loopers? The very first looper that I used, I borrowed off a mate, and it was pretty much the most basic looper out there. It was a little Boss single stomp box, that sort of thing. And it was a nice way of dipping my toe in and going, yes, I definitely do want a looper. So I purchased a Digitech Jam Man. And that was good. It was a good step up, had more buttons on it, but it did lack independent layers. After that, I replaced that when I bought myself the HX Stomp Multi Effects pedal by Line 6, which also includes a looper. But that is a small pedal. I intentionally want a small pedal board for when I'm gigging. I don't want multiple racks all around me, that sort of thing. So as much as I really liked it, there was a few things that were a little bit qualmy about it. I've been using it for live gigs, but one of those stresses that I was talking about is on that unit, to stop a loop, so at the end of a song, for instance, you had to double tap, and that just gave me loads of stress because you can stuff that up very easily. And no sort of quantizing of any sort, that sort of thing. So that is where I was up until I got up to the Aeros looper. So now you know my context of where I've come from with loopers, you'll have a better understanding of the comments that I'm going to make about the Aeros. Because what are my ideals for a looper? Well, they are that it has plenty of tracks, not just overdubs. Aeros has definitely got that. There is a 2x2 mode and a 6x6 mode, which basically means you can have 2 independent tracks, and that's the simple basic mode, or you can have 6 tracks and what they call parts, which is song parts, and that's something I hadn't even thought of as being a possibility with loopers before, so that was a big welcome addition. Basically, with most loopers, you need to find a song that is one chord progression over and over again. You can't do like a verse and a chorus if those are different in the song, whereas with song parts, as they call them, you now have that flexibility. Next, I wanted a looper that was stereo and had a screen, and as you can see, the Aeros definitely ticks those boxes, which is fantastic. Plenty of memory and or external memory options. This has both. It has loads of memory. You can see on the screen there our recording time, 20 minutes, which is bonkers heaps. And even if I did use that up, we've got the external memory option with the SD card. And finally, from what I was talking about there before, not too big. And I think the Aeros have really nailed that as far as the size goes. Did a little bit of shuffling before with my pedal board, and it just fits on once I remove my foot controller that I had previously, which really was for looping functions anyway. So it's going to fit on there nice and snugly. And at the same time, check it out. The foot switches, good spacing apart. That's a little bit of a freak out that I had also with my HX, is that the buttons were quite close together. So really nice compromise between size of being a small unit, but well-spaced buttons. Finally, I wanted a looper that was intuitive, and I understood in going further up, having lots of features with a more involved looper it becomes less intuitive. There is more options available, but in that case, I wanted to, ensure that if it's not completely intuitive with so many options available, that there is good instructions. So now that you know my musts in a looper, let's take a look at some of the other notable features. Some features that I didn't even realize that I wanted, but now that I've got them, I realize, oh yeah, that's definitely something that I want. So we've got the song parts, we've got the 2x2 mode and the 6x6 mode. There is the inclusion of a click track and the ability to control that by tap tempo. Now that click track can be just in the count in, or it can be throughout the entire track. In addition to that, we have an auxiliary output, which is what I'm using right now. Over here, I'm running this to my little speaker so I can hear in the room, and then I've got my main output over here running to record this video on my computer. And so what I've done is I've set it up so I've got the click track running constantly through my speaker so I can hear that. But over on the computer, you're only going to hear that in the lead-in, the count-in of the song. So that's pretty representative of like being on stage. My speaker that I've got here is my monitor in this situation, and in place of going to my computer, that would be the front of house on stage. Now you'll see we've got a nice big screen here, and it's not just a screen, it is a touch screen, so that gives you an amazing amount of control. I never even thought of the possibility of having a touch screen on a looper, but now that I've got it, it's become a must for me. I couldn't go backwards. I always knew that I wanted a screen on a looper, but that's going one step further again. There is the ability to have a level of quantizing. Because we've got this click track that's going on that I was mentioning about, is you can then hit a button and then have that recording of that current loop chop off at the end of a bar, because we've now set a time frame with that click track there. So that's a really cool feature as well, which gives you some amount of dummy proofing this, which, back to my reference, that I find loopers a little bit tricky, and I find that stress of hitting the button right at the right time. You don't have to hit it right on the one as you're getting to the end of a loop. The beauty of this is that pretty much as long as you press the button in the bar leading up, it's going to do the chop for you at the right time. Now, what's this guy over here? It is a scroll wheel, and that can be used for navigating through things. It can also be used for controlling your volumes of your different layers that we've got here, which is really, really cool. Nice being able to do that, which is something that maybe some other loopers have it, but I haven't encountered that before. So that's a nice feature. As well, we have these buttons, which, much like on my HX and a lot of brands are using these days, instead of having a button that is dedicated, labeled something, you'll notice all we've got is the three buttons, and then they're pointing towards different places on the screen. And what this does is, I call this contextual controls. In other words, the button does different things depending what is showing on the screen. And so it's, these buttons meets what is displaying on the screen. And it's great. It works really, really well. You've got displayed at the moment, if I press this button, it will be tap tempo. If I press this one, it'll record on a given track. And then if I press this one, it'll record on a given track. Once I'm recording, you notice it will say play. So that's contextual buttons. And as well as that, there is a lot of customization available. There is sort of two settings. The way that this is set up, you'll see up the top here is song 3. So it treats a session as a song. Other things worth mentioning are the build quality. The build quality is really good. It's not metal, so it's not too heavy, but it feels nice and solid at the same time. We also have, this little symbol up here, the Wi-Fi symbol. That was really cool. As soon as I set up the looper and plugged it in the first time, has a little section over there mentioning for Wi-Fi. And so I connected to my network and straight away was able to update the loop without having to plug in USB cables and all that sort of thing, and making sure that it's working with your computer to then be able to update it. All of that is done away with because it's just direct straight to the Wi-Fi. So I was pleasantly surprised by that. We also have the functions of, which are new functions, which comes nicely after mentioning the Wi-Fi, is in firmware updates, is now the inclusion of having fade-ins and fade-outs, which are completely optional in your settings, and also the inclusion of the ability to reverse a loop as well, which is really good for people who are into doing ambient stuff on their looper. Currently, that is only controllable by an external controller, and that leads us to that one. There is the ability to control the Aeros with a MIDI controller, which does a lot to take away the minuses of potentially the lack of pedals, some people would say, compared to like a Boss looper. Because you have that MIDI control option, which I do have a MIDI controller myself, is I can then make it a big looper when I want it to, and I can make it a small looper when I want it to. So that's really cool as well. Lastly, also worth mentioning is that it can sync up with the Beat Buddy pedal, which I've done several videos of before, which is also made by Singular Sound. So you can set that up so that you've got the Beat Buddy is essentially a drum machine in a guitar pedal, and you can get these to work nicely together. So that is a cool extra feature there as well. So let's give you a little demo. If you've never encountered looping before, then you'd have no idea what I'd be talking about here, and you probably wouldn't still be here, but let's give a little demo so you can see this in action. As I have mentioned, I wanted to go a little different tact here, so you'd be thinking, well, you've been talking all this time and you haven't played the thing yet. There's plenty of other videos doing reviews and demos, so I really wanted to give you this more personal context of my journey. And so if you're in that bag where you think, I'm not great with loopers, here's this guy demoing it, he's great with loopers, you might feel a little bit uncatered for. So that is why I've gone this personal tact on things. So currently I am in the 2x2 mode. So that means that we have 2 tracks available, but we also can overdub on either of those 2 tracks. And then we have 2 parts. 2 song parts, you can think of that as. So we can create a loop for the verse and we can create a loop for the chorus. So that's what I'm going to do here. I'm going to go with a little bit of Verve because I think it's a good song for doing some looping on. Love the melody. In addition to that, it essentially is 2 parts that we've got in the song. Our first section. Here's our second section. So I can change back to my first section. There's our next part, and kind of similar, aren't they? Now, I can do my next track. Here we go. Double it up, overdub. See how I'm hitting the button there early? Because we have those measured points with the click track, it means I don't have to land it right on the one. That's what I was talking about earlier. So I can get a bit of percussion, do that on the first track. Here we go. Have a little solo, go to my other part. Jump into the other section there. Isn't that sweet? There's our fade. Check it out. Oh, bliss. Magical. So you hear a little bit of the click through there maybe coming through my microphone, but that's the beauty of it. You can have this click be there for as long as you want. You can have it be just for the count-in, or you can have it be later as well. It really is up to you. Lot of versatility. So after 2 weeks of using it, what are the negatives in my view? Well, a lot of people who loop like to have the ability to plug in a microphone. There is no microphone input in here, but you can plug a mixing desk in. So some people who like to do looping with various instruments, maybe they've got a drum, maybe they've got like a harmonica or a keyboard or whatever else they want to do, multi-instrument looping, you can just run your desk in. So that takes care of that. So that's good. The challenge that I encountered most of all, especially as I said, lacking a bit of loop logic, is the system that they have here. We've got this great big screen, but a lot of what is going on for understanding what's going on under the hood is a color-based and a shape-based system. So you notice the colors of the loops there, all that sort of thing. Red is very obvious. Okay, we are recording right now. Where I found myself getting lost again and again was with the other colors. What does it mean when the track's yellow? What does it mean when it's blue? What does it mean when it's green? And then over here on the side, if I hit play again, our little circles that we've got there. You can have all sorts of different things going on with the colors of the circles and then the outer circles and then there's squares. For me, that is tricky. When there's plenty of room on the screen, I really think there's space for actual words to say, okay, this track is muted or whatever else, rather than just being purely color-based. If it was a tiny little screen, I'd understand there's no choice, but there actually is plenty of room on there. So there is just that little bit of a curve going on. There's a nice little guide, a little getting started guide of what all of those things mean, but it's just a little bit of effort to get those things into your head or having that as a quick reference nearby. The other thing that for me of talking about taking away the stress of looping is I was hoping when I had my previous looper that whatever I get next might be getting into the area of using a bit of AI or whatever else to do beat detection, so that when you hit the button imperfectly and you're not using the click track option, because what I like to do currently is the place that I use a looper, whether I'm playing solo or as a duo, is I'll play through a song normally, not using any looping, but what I like to do on the end of the song is to take a solo. So what I'll do is as that last chorus is going, and that's what I'm going to be wanting to solo over as a loop, what I'll do is I'll hit the button to go, okay, this is where our loop starts. We'll be there and the singer will be singing away. We'll get through that and then stomp. That starts playing in the background and then I can take my solo. So with that, you're not dealing with a click track. And so that is what we sort of think of as an open mode, a flexible mode where there is no click track that's going on. So with that, it is once again down to you making sure that you hit the loop button perfectly as you start the loop and also once again as you end the loop there. Having a little bit of brains in the thing, and this is a loop studio, like it's essentially like a little computer. Maybe it's even possible in a firmware in the future, I don't know. But having a bit of beat detection just to make up for, you know, our human inadequacies, sometimes we don't land it right on the beat. And that's what I find so tough with looping is landing right on the beat for it to be perfect. I'm pretty harsh on myself if I don't get it completely perfect when you can hear those little foibles in there. So I don't think any loopers have that at the moment, but maybe in the future that's something that could exist. So with all of that done and said, is the Aeros the best looper out there? Well, I can only answer for me, and that is why I've given all this context to you. So I want to give you the summary of why I feel it is the best looper for me. And first of all, as I was saying, the size, it's great. It's a really good compromise of it's small enough to fit onto a pedal board, but it's roomy enough to be able to have good spacing between each of those pedals that we've got there. The layout is really good. I really like the whole system of having those contextual buttons. Song parts, it's the thing that I didn't think even existed, but so stoked to have now to be able to have 2 different sections or up to 6 different sections. Up to 6 tracks, more than I need. Having a screen, having a touch screen for that matter is great. Really nice for getting around and feel a lot more connected using a touch screen rather than always having to use buttons. The fade out option, that for me is glorious. Previously I was get there and doing manual fades with my foot controller on my HX, and now the other advancement of having reversible loops, definitely good for the ambient stuff. And of course, the MIDI controller ability so that when I want to, I can have more switches to make it virtually a bigger board is really, really cool. Have the option of it being a small looper or a big looper. If you like what you see and you're like, yep, I want to get myself an Aeros, well, you can get yourself a 10% discount that I have for you right here, and also down in the description, the link is there. Extra special bonus that I'm including for nail guitar viewers is the Aeros Made Easy video course. What is that? It's a little mini course, and it's anything that I encountered in my last 2 weeks digging into the Aeros that I found challenging, or I think people might find challenging, all in video format. Yes, it has a manual, but just seeing things explained, some of the terms, some of the options that are available there in the settings. It has a little description of what it is, but even with a description, you just want to have someone show you what's the difference between these 3 different settings, all of that sort of thing. So that is available for you. All you have to do is send through your receipt when you make a purchase, purchasing with my link, and I'll send that course through to you. My name is Andy. This is Nail Guitar. Have fun playing your looper.